The 1920s, often termed the Roaring Twenties, were a period of vibrant economic prosperity and dazzling cultural growth in the United States. This decade saw a remarkable transformation as America shifted from wartime gloom to peacetime boom. Cities flourished, and the nation's total wealth more than doubled. Jazz music filled the air, and the Charleston dance became all the rage, symbolizing the era's exuberant spirit. People flocked to theaters to see the first movies with sound, and the radio became a new, exciting source of entertainment and news. During these years, technological advancements were rapid and widespread. The automobile revolutionized personal and business life, while assembly lines made consumer goods like radios and refrigerators affordable for the average American family. This economic upturn was driven by a post-war resurgence in industrial activity and a significant increase in consumer spending and credit. America was optimistic, and the stock market was the playground where many sought their fortunes. Everyone seemed to believe that the good times would never end. However, this economic boom also led to excesses. Speculation became rampant, with stocks being bought not as long-term investments, but as quick opportunities for profit. The financial sector ballooned, with banks and investors placing risky bets. This speculative bubble couldn't sustain itself forever. Despite the glitzy surface, there were underlying weaknesses in the economy that were largely ignored, overproduction and uneven wealth distribution being the most critical. Despite these looming issues, the general sentiment was one of unchecked optimism. Magazines and newspapers of the time were filled with tales of success and opulence, further fueling the speculative fire. This period vividly illustrates how cultural and economic forces intertwined, setting the stage for the dramatic events that would follow in the 1930s. October 29, 1929, known as Black Tuesday, marked a cataclysmic turning point in American history. On this day, the stock market crashed, wiping out thousands of investors and heralding the beginning of the Great Depression. The preceding years of economic boom had created a bubble of speculative investments, and when reality hit, the bubble burst spectacularly. Stocks plummeted, fortunes were lost overnight, and the entire financial system was shaken to its core. The impact on everyday Americans was profound and immediate. Many who had invested their life savings in the stock market were left with nothing. Banks, hit by the stock market crash and a subsequent run on withdrawals, failed by the thousands. This not only wiped out more savings but also tightened credit, leading to a drastic reduction in consumer spending and investment. Businesses closed their doors, unable to sustain operations without capital or customers, and unemployment rates began to soar. These economic troubles quickly permeated every facet of American life. As businesses shuttered and banks failed, the ripple effects were felt in every industry and home across the country. The crash had not just economic consequences but profound social and psychological impacts as well. The initial shock was followed by a pervasive fear and uncertainty about the future, which only served to exacerbate the economic downturn. In the aftermath of the crash, the government struggled to respond effectively. Initial measures were insufficient to stem the tide of the economic collapse, and public confidence in the financial and political leadership hit rock bottom. This period highlighted the vulnerability of the economic systems in place and set the stage for sweeping reforms under the New Deal. The crash was more than just a financial disaster. It was a societal shock that upended millions of lives. The years following the stock market crash were marked by severe hardship and suffering for many Americans. Unemployment rates soared to 25%, and those who kept their jobs faced wage cuts and uncertain futures. Cities and towns across the country were dotted with breadlines and soup kitchens, as charitable organizations struggled to meet the overwhelming need for food and basic services. The absence of a social safety net meant that for many, these charities represented the last line of defense against total destitution. Housing was another critical issue. Many lost their homes to foreclosure, and makeshift shantytowns, sarcastically dubbed Hoovervilles after President Herbert Hoover, sprang up around the country. These ramshackle communities were built from scraps of metal, cardboard, and whatever materials people could find. Life in Hoovervilles was difficult, with no sanitation facilities or electricity, and they became symbols of the federal government's failure to address the crisis. The plight of farmers was particularly tragic. Already suffering from the effects of overproduction and falling prices, the Dust Bowl, a severe drought that hit the Plain States in the mid-1930s, added ecological disaster to economic hardship. Massive dust storms destroyed crops and livestock, turning fertile fields into deserts. Many farmers were forced to leave their land in search of work elsewhere, often heading to California, where they faced intense competition for low-paying jobs in an already saturated market. Despite the overwhelming challenges, the human spirit shone through in various ways. Communities often came together to support each other, sharing resources and providing mutual aid. Stories of kindness, resilience, and innovation emerged from these dark times, showing the strength of the human spirit. The Great Depression was a time of immense struggle, but also of profound community and solidarity, which would eventually pave the way for recovery under the New Deal initiatives. Section 4. The New Deal, a beacon of hope. In response to the widespread economic despair, President Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced the New Deal, a series of programs, public work projects, financial reforms, and regulations enacted in the 1930s. The New Deal was designed to provide relief for the unemployed and poor, recover the economy to normal levels, and reform the financial system to prevent a repeat of the Great Depression. One of the most famous initiatives was the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC, which provided jobs in environmental conservation projects, and the Works Progress Administration, or WPA, which employed millions to carry out public projects, including the construction of roads and buildings. The New Deal also saw the inception of key social safety nets that Americans still rely on today, such as Social Security and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insures bank deposits. These measures not only provided immediate aid, but also restructured the economic landscape to safeguard against future crises. The New Deal fundamentally changed the relationship between the government and its citizens, acknowledging a responsibility to ensure a basic level of welfare for all Americans. Critics of the New Deal argued that it expanded federal power too far and discouraged private enterprise. However, its supporters contended that it was necessary to stabilize the economy and provide security to suffering Americans. The New Deal did not end the Great Depression. World War II's massive economic demands accomplished that, but it alleviated the worst effects of the Great Depression and set a precedent for federal responsibility in securing economic stability and welfare. The legacy of the New Deal is still evident today in numerous public buildings, parks, and artworks, as well as in the lasting reforms it introduced. It represents a pivotal moment in American history when economic theory and policy shifted towards a more interventionist stance, laying the groundwork for modern economic and social policies. The New Deal was not just a series of government programs, it was a beacon of hope that restored faith in American democracy at a time when it was desperately needed. Section 5. Concluding Thoughts, Lessons, and Legacy. The Great Depression remains one of the most significant events in American history, providing crucial lessons on economic management, the role of government, and the resilience of the human spirit. It taught us the dangers of economic excess and the importance of regulatory oversight to prevent speculative bubbles. The responses to the crisis, particularly the New Deal, have shaped the framework of modern American economic policy and the expectations of governmental roles in economic crises. Today, as we face new economic challenges, the lessons of the Great Depression are more relevant than ever. They remind us of the importance of economic stability and the need for comprehensive safety nets to protect the most vulnerable members of society. The historical narrative of the Great Depression and the New Deal also underscores the potential for positive change during times of crisis, showing that strategic governmental intervention can lead to substantial and lasting improvements in national welfare. Reflecting on this era also highlights the strength and adaptability of individuals and communities. Personal stories from the Great Depression reveal the capacity for resilience and innovation even in the hardest times. These stories inspire current and future generations to face challenges with a similar spirit of determination and solidarity. As we continue to navigate economic uncertainties, the enduring lessons from the Great Depression serve as a guiding light. They remind us that with thoughtful policy and a collective effort, recovery is not just possible but inevitable. The Great Depression, with all its hardships, ultimately led to substantial economic and social reforms that have benefited generations. It stands as a testament to the idea that through adversity, we can emerge stronger and more united.